Now, the anti-Semitism campaigner who was threatened with arrest at a pro-Palestine rally has told GBNews that the chief of the Metropolitan Police should resign despite his apology. Gideon Falter, who is the chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism, was described, of course, as openly Jewish by officers and told his presence at a pro-Palestine demonstration was provocative. Let's cross now to our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show, and I believe you have a very special guest with you to talk about this.
Hi, Martin, that's right. With me now is Lord Mann, John Mann, who's the government's anti-Semitism advisor. Lord Mann, is Gideon Falter right? Should Mark Rowley resign?
No, Mr Falter's wrong. I mean, it would be, I think, very dangerous for the country and very dangerous for the Jewish community if Sir Mark Rowley was to go. He is the senior expert in the country on counter-terrorism. We need those skills at the moment. You know, we're living in dangerous times. The last thing we want is to undermine our ability to deal with terrorism. So no, Rowley should stay.
But you've seen the video, Gideon Falter, he was Jewish, he was trying to cross a street, he was wearing a kippah skull cap in that march on April the 13th. Why can't you cross the street wearing a kippah skull cap?
Well, you need to be able to do that, but I think it's reasonable to say that what Gideon Falter was doing is protesting. It's protesting, perfectly legitimate in this country to protest. But there are two sides there protesting. I think it's perfectly reasonable for the police to say, well, let's keep the two sides apart and let's not have them clashing. And there is a danger, you know, if the line was to take hold that you can walk into other people's demonstrations, even if you're very active in opposing the basis of those demonstrations. I mean, imagine if, let's say, an activist, an agitator from within the Muslim community came with all the garb into the Jewish community, into a Jewish communal event, and started walking around and filming. I don't think people would be very happy about that. I wouldn't be happy about that, and I'd expect the police, if they were there, to intervene and politely move them on. You know, there isn't absolute freedom in this country to walk where you want. There needs to be consideration of the difficult role the police have, and I think actually they messed up on their language. There needs to be some education there. Their PR afterwards was pretty dismal. But there is not a precedent, in my view, that we can allow, that would allow an activist from one campaign to walk into the middle of someone else's campaign. For the Jewish community, if done in reverse, that would be very bad news indeed.
Yeah, that language saying that the Mr Falter was openly Jewish is what you're describing there as being clumsy language from the
nonsense. You know, I mean, it's not the openly Jewish, it's the fact that he's clearly and well known to be and proud to be the other side of an argument. You know, he's proudly Jewish. Nothing wrong with being proudly Jewish. He's proudly Zionist. He's perfectly entitled in this country to be proudly Zionist and pro-Israel. He is. But there's a clash there when there are demonstrators demonstrating against Israel and its actions. We'd have exactly the reverse situation mirrored if it was a Palestinian activist or pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel activist who went into a Jewish communal event, perhaps a Jewish community protest on the hostages. I don't want to see that. That's not good for our democracy. So I want to see sensible policing, better language, please, better education. The apology was certainly required, but no, Rowley should stay, and we shouldn't have people wandering into other people's protests. That is a very slippery slope to all sorts of problems, including for the Jewish community.
So, but Lord Mann, you're the government's anti-Semitism advisor. The PM, Rishi Sunak, your ultimate boss, I suppose, in that sense, has said that Mark Rowley needs to rebuild confidence and trust with the Jewish community. Mark Rowley is now meeting with the Home Secretary, James Cleverly. The government you're advising isn't listening to what you're saying.
No, I think the Prime Minister is listening. The Prime Minister hasn't called for Sir Mark Rowley to go, neither has the Home Secretary. That's significant. So Rowley's position is secure. There have been meetings today with the Jewish community. There's a meeting later this week. The Home Secretary's meeting. I'm also meeting Sir Mark Rowley on this. So, yes, there does need to be thought. There's a balance to be struck. You know, how many demonstrations a week can there be? Where should they be? You know, if you're a business and someone's demonstrating on something else outside your business regularly, then you're losing money and your customers and your workforce are impacted. So I think there's always imagination. I think the police can use more imagination. Let the protesters have their democratic say, but let's make sure as well that businesses in particular and the Jewish community are not overly disturbed in going about their way of life. The two can be done. That's what good policing is, and I'm sure that's what the Prime Minister is saying, and I would echo that.
So you feel sorry for the police in this case?
I do indeed, because, look, that police officer clearly messed up. I don't know him, but he clearly messed up. But he was doing his job, and, I've seen the full 13 minutes. He was trying to do his job professionally. The police are in a difficult situation. They're in the middle of this. And if you've got two sides with very strong views, and that was the case in this situation, without any question, the police need to manage it. And people have used the analogy of football fans. Well, when I go watch my team playing your team, occasionally we can't go down the roads we want to go down. Sometimes we can't even go in the pubs we'd like to go into. We don't always like that, but the police have a job to do to look after me and you in that situation, and here to ensure that whoever's protesting on all sides can do so safely. So no, I don't criticise the police in their overall approach, but I do think there were some mistakes made and the police need to learn from that.
Well, that's Lord Mann there, Martin, with a clear defence there of the police and the way they behave towards Gideon Falter.
Thank you, Chris Hope. Super Lord John Mann there saying Mark Rowley should not be fired.